Good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to our quarterly webinar series with John Burns Real Estate Consulting Group. This is Lori Paddock. I'm the National Accounts Coordinator for Homesphere. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day today to attend with us. Today we are discussing the boomer generation of 55 years and older, what their home preferences are like, and where those opportunities lie for home builders. Our webinar today is sponsored by Professional Warranty Service Corporation, which offers insured warranties to home builders that help reduce your risk and sell more homes. Their mission is to administer the most rock-solid, comprehensive, easy-to-understand home warranty solutions available nationwide. PWSC understands that as a builder, risk doesn't just end at closing. Therefore, they offer products to protect your promises and profits from foundation to fridge. Here to tell us about the company and its products is Roger Langford, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Professional Warranty Service Corporation. Roger, the floor is all yours.
We appreciate you guys allowing us to participate in this program. If you're like me, you didn't sleep much last night because of the baseball game, so thanks for taking the time, allowing us the opportunity to show how our products help reduce risk and sell more homes. I'd like to give you a little overview about us as a company. We administer over 1.4 million homes that gives coverage on $380 million in new home construction. If you take annualized sales, we're close to 15% of all homes closed in the market. We have materials too and sales tool and communicating assurances to the home builders. We're very proud of our customer base and our partnership. Simple motto is your business is protected as your homeowner. That provides builders a risk management tool to manage and mediate customer expectations. One of the largest insurance carriers in America. We also partner with many of the larger public builders in the United States by providing a home builders limited warranty that is in builders. Over the last systems and appliance warranty, which gives both builders and homeowners the opportunity to extend their systems and appliance warranties from years 2 through 4. We also recognize that some builders want to focus particularly on building homes, so we provided an administrative services product called First and 10 that allows builders to utilize our services to help manage first and second year warranty calls. And finally, we're very excited over the last year to introduce what's called our homeowner platform, which takes that old 3-ring binder that you use to deliver to the homeowners and put it into a virtual format that then in turn allows home buyers to become homeowners by storing all of their information as well as building a profile of their home that helps give best in-class maintenance reminders. We have a design to help protect a builder's risk over a long period of time, but homeowners themselves have real high thoughts on warranty. We just did a third-party customer service survey to determine what homeowners think of warranty. I'd like to share some of those results with you. Here's one. 6 in 10 homeowners see strong value in home warranties. 67% say that home warranties is worth more than $500, more money than they're spending. 61% believe a builder with a structural warranty reflects higher quality homes with higher quality builders. 78% see more value in a third party acting as an advocate resolving disputes and claims, and 87% would likely work with their builder in the future and have the warranty as a part of the conversation about recommending them. We too see that the baby boomer industry is a big part of the growth in housing. We just produced a white paper talking about baby boomers and home builders as a unique real estate market. We strongly ask each one of you to go to our .com/blog. We have a variety of trending topics and fresh industry perspective articles that not only apply to homeowners, home builders, but also real estate agents. We want to partner with our clients in the community in providing more insight and be a resource to our clients. From that, I do appreciate you guys sharing your time with us, and I will turn this over to Molly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Roger, for sharing that valuable information about PWSC and their solutions. I know there's quite a few builders on the call today that will find that information useful. If you have any questions for Roger or throughout the upcoming presentation with Molly Carmichael at John Burns, please use the question and chat function through GoToWebinar, and I will gather all that information and we can discuss that at the end if there's time permitting. We now turn our attention to today's core presentation from John Burns Real Estate Consulting, a Homesphere industry partner and a national leader in housing research. Presenting today is Mollie Carmichael and Steve Birch. Mollie is the principal at John Burns in the custom consulting practice, and Steve is a senior vice president of consulting. Mollie and Steve, I will let you take it from here.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Roger. We're going to dive right in, and excited to be here today to talk through some of the differences in the boomer generation and really the redefinition of how we're looking at this group and now what we're referring to as two different groups based on our recent book. So let's talk through a little bit of that. Just a quick introduction. We do work all over the country. You can see where we're at. We've got several consultants and I think some of the smartest people in the industry. And I'm thrilled to have Steve on this call as well. We're studying the heck out of demographics, consumer, and just everything that you can think of to help you guys make better decisions, frankly, as it relates to the real estate industry and just a shifting market. So diving in, these are the four big subjects that we cover. Obviously, market trends we're very well known for. We just released this great book. If you don't have your hands on it, look for this book. If you go to, I think it's bigshiftahead.com, you can order the book, or Amazon. And then also we're going to report the split now of looking at innovators and achievers, and we'll talk about what that means in our consumer and product insights reports. And then, of course, we're going to show some design lens examples, so some interesting design thoughts, not the typical stuff, the things that will sort of make you think differently. All of the real typical stuff I know many of you are very much aware of. So I love to start here, which is we sell the most expensive product to consumers today, and we must listen. So they are the focus of why we do what we do, and so we're going to share a little bit about who they are, how many there are, and so on. So let's just start with this big question. How many consumers aged 55 to 65 actually want to live in a childless neighborhood? So that would consist of age restricted or age targeted. It's pretty compelling, actually. It's one of two, or 50%. And if we look at how many people in that group, what they're looking for, that they're finding it, 53% basically say they can't find what they're looking for. It's the largest percentage of all of the segments we're going to talk about today that cannot find what they're looking for. So I think there's an opportunity. What's really important about this discussion is these are new home shoppers out there looking 100%. For homes. They've all been in most of your builders' sales offices, and they still can't find it. So that's how we actually get our source for consumer insights, is launching that to new home shoppers out there looking for new homes. So diving into the demographics, I love starting with this. Whenever I sort of speak on 55 plus, people are so mad at this slide. But is this really your consumer today? And oftentimes when we think about, and Steve and I can say this because we both work for Pulte Del Webb, like, oh, you know, Del Webb, it's all a bunch of super old people. Well, it's not. When we look at 55 plus today, it's changed so much because we're living so much longer. So we've all heard that 55 is the new 45, and 65 is the new 55, and 75 is the new 65, and 85 is the new 75. You can really see we're becoming much more of an ageless society for a lot of reasons. If we look at how much, why that is, we're just living longer. If you look at this, we've added 15 to 25 years of our life. If you look at the size of this population, it's huge. Nearly 10,000 are turning 65 each day, and by we'll actually see 11,700 per day by 2025. So, and that hit is really just hitting right now. So we're really starting to see that momentum. If you look at the builds there from 2016 going through to 2025, it really continues to grow. The 65 plus population, it's a huge percentage of the population. If you look at it over the years, it's a much bigger percentage of that in comparison to history. And the share of home ownership for this group is phenomenal too. 54% of the total owned households, it's 55 plus. I mean, that's staggering when you really think of it. So if your business today is 75 to 80% all focused on young couple, young family, which oftentimes it is, when they're the most mobile, there's a reason for that. But it really has to shift to make this a big part of your business going forward. Home ownership for this group, if you look at today and sort of look in this category here, if we look at the 65 to 69, it's definitely coming down for sure, but it's still well above 80%. And if we even look at the 70 to 74, and look how big those numbers are for home ownership. We're just working longer, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We're going to talk about two different segments in what we use to reference as the boomer population. But we're working longer, frankly, for financial reasons, but we're also working longer because we want to. And there's an association with not working, with not being alive or not being, you know, mentally and physically fit, all those things. But there is a reality to this too. So for retirees, this number has actually dropped recently, but 35% of our consumers today just aren't confident they're going to have enough money to retire. So that number has dropped. It was actually quite a bit higher last year, but it's just the concern for between pension funds and Social Security and the savings and equity, how that plays a part. So where is everybody retiring? Where are they going? So if we look at this, and Steve, I know you've had a lot of experience with this with web, and we're certainly seeing a lot of it with multiple age-restricted communities out there, but where are they moving to? So if you look at all of the blue, those are what we're calling retiree haven, and if you look at all of the red, that's really where they're leaving from. So this is a pretty neat slide to just kind of see the big pockets of Phoenix and Vegas and certainly Florida. But look at the shifts to Idaho, Oregon, Washington. Some of those are some interesting shifts to see too.
And this gets really to be a big deal when you're trying to assess demand for a community. And if you're in Arizona or you're in Nevada or you're in California, very different dynamics. And so you really need to think about the feeder markets where people are coming from in addition to who's just around it. Up to 50% of active adult communities and destination markets will be made up of people from outside of the market to start with. It's really important when you're doing your estimations.
I agree, Steve. And to add to that, the influences on what they want in community home are very different. So that's also a really important thing to look at, coming from where they're at and where they're going to and what's important to them. So if we also look at multi-generational households, and you'll see why that's a pretty crucial thing to talk about as well, if we look at how those are shifting too and how much that's growing, I mean, look at the shifts again in the Phoenix market or the California market. It's pretty substantial. So another
this is kind of a ubiquitous sandwich generation.
That's right.
Where they may have they may have a parent living with them. They may have an older kid bouncing back. But it really makes a difference when you're planning your floor plan layout and what kinds of things a multi-generational family would be looking for relative to just an empty nester couple.
And we see those trends really growing, and you'll see where as well. And if you look at pension plans, you know, a portion of the boomer generation can benefit from that, but another portion of that boomer generation is not benefiting really from that, and pensions are largely going away. So let's drop into, as we sort of look at the generation, the boomer generation, and kind of how we're looking at it a little bit differently. So again, with the book and Chris Porter and John Burns and a whole team of people here just sort of pulling apart the census, looking at everything we could get our arms around, and how should we strategically be thinking about demographics and how it can make a difference in our industry. So again, this is how we used to look at it. We're going to focus really on the boomers and the silent generation, and more so the boomers. But the reality is, if we even just take the boomers, the difference in that whole 20-year population group is very, very different. And let's look at how some of those differences. We looked at life stage. We looked at economic impacts, huge societal impacts, technology, innovation. And so when we look at those simple things, we came out with basically breaking out these 20 and 15-year increments of population and dropping them into a decade of population. And the reality is what we found when we did that, you're going to see it was substantially different. So when we look at the groups that we're talking about specifically, equalers, innovators, and achievers, let's just look at those just purely from a life stage standpoint. Equalers are still in family mode, or their kids are just moving out. The innovators, 70% are still working, and the achievers, 70% are retired. And this, again, is your new home shopping population. So those are all substantially different product solutions. And then add geography into all of that, and it becomes a lot more complicated. But really, to be able to look at this as more than just one big massive population, breaking them into these segments, it's pretty amazing, and it's pretty powerful when you look at it this way. Now the savers, they certainly are the 55 plus population, but they're less likely to be your target out in the new home market. So when we look at overall population-wise, you'll actually see they're roughly, the equalers are 17% of that population of 25 plus, 16% for the innovators, and 11% for the achievers. If we look overall, and basically what we did is we looked at the 25 plus population, because those are the ones out there looking for new homes, and then we compared that to the percentage of people actually shopping for a home. And the innovators are your #1 new home shopper across the country. Followed by
Mollie,
yeah.
Go back one slide.
You bet.
So one of the things that a lot of the builders on this call and the developers on this call may be dealing with is more multicultural influences in their community shoppers. So look at this, among the shoppers that we looked at, the number of people that are foreign born, that's the lighter number on top of this graph, and that's why you're seeing a notable increase in diversity as your shoppers get younger, even when they're baby boomers. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I didn't want to let that one go.
It's a really great point, because you're going to see more cultural diversity for the equalers than you are for the innovators and achievers. And we know, for those of us who have worked a lot in the age-restricted category, those age-restricted categories, for a lot of different reasons, not just because of this portion of it, but for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's almost 98% Caucasian. And so the question is will that continue to stay that way for cultural reasons, or are we going to start to see more multicultural 55 plus communities? And I think we will. I think the answer is, but there are other factors involved that impact it as well. But
Thank you.
Point, Steve. As you look to actually the new home shoppers, as I mentioned, innovators are #1, followed by the balancers. But when we look at that future of the 55 plus market, it's really going to be the innovators and the equalers as your primary targets. The achievers drop quite a bit, but there are very different reasons. Today, they're definitely out there in the 55 plus market, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So when we look at actually the number of households out there, innovators and equalers are the largest number of households out there as a whole number. So 22.9 million innovators and 23.5 million equalers. As we look to who has the money, which is always important, innovators have the most money, and really then followed by the achievers. The achievers today have been the wealthiest retirees. The equalers from ages 45 to 55, they actually have the lowest net worth in that age group at 45 to 55. And a lot of that has to do with, obviously, the recent recession that we were hit pretty hard with and other things. But they're not quite as wealthy as the innovators. They're still building wealth, though, so give them some time. So let's look at the achievers in a little bit more detail. Overall, they're your #5 opportunities. They're not going to be super high on the list as far as opportunity goes. They're 6 for population, 5 for households, 4th for top new home shopper in the country, and #2 for net worth. So don't discard #2. They're a little bit more frugal for frugal sake, just given their background too. So they grew up in suburbia. The average home size they grew up in was under 1,000 square feet. But home innovation really began for this group. So you can see things like this is actually a DE product, and you know what? This is really, I think, pretty clever and should come back. But it's making every sort of piece of storage work, and so that whole sort of cabinetry there is actually refrigerated cabinetry, as an example. So you can start to see some of that innovation popping up, but very traditional as a whole. If we look at overall music, rock and roll certainly begins for this group. Television is very traditional as well. As we look to the overall fight for equality, this group really started that big fight, and for many different groups. And if you look at it today, they've had a huge impact on that fight for equality. It's really, really evolved since then. if we look at even just the simple things, the beginnings of the ageless society, you know, thanks in part to modern science, I mean, it's really had a big impact on how we look at that 55-plus consumer group today. And the reality is, you know, 70 could really be the new 50. Cher is 70 years old, which is kind of wild. So again, that's part of why I think we have sort of this more ageless society. It's the fight for equality, it's the working longer, it's the modern science certainly plays a part in that. But we're just younger, more vibrant, and it's new and different. And it's going to continue to be that way. Other things to consider for this group is, you know, freeways changed everything. So the introduction of the freeway created suburban sprawl like Levittown. We actually, certainly the credit card had a huge impact. We could buy more than, frankly, we could afford. And that certainly has had a huge impact on society. But when we look at the overall story of the achievers, I mean, they were very driven by employment and financial success. Remember, they grew up with their Depression parents, and it was very, very frugal at home. And so with the credit card and more women working and all kinds of things, that really sort of changed it. So their formative years, again, they were born to frugal parents. They were impacted by the Vietnam War, certainly. Many of them were in that. And women's fight for equality led to more working women. We had more credit card spending. The GI Bill obviously spurred a lot more home ownership like Levittown. And then freeways certainly helped suburban sprawl happen. From a family perspective, they had 30% fewer children. Divorce spiked. Split families grew at an enormous rate, and double income families shot up. Technology and innovation, they experienced air travel. Again, the freeways we talked about. Paper and phone is their definitely preferred communication. They see technology in their iPhones and all those kinds of things more for news and information than truly their right arm like their children. And again, we talked about phone and preferred for email. For employment, 70% are retired. Pensions and retirement plans make them the wealthiest retirees to date. They equated retiring with success. And because of that, when we look at sort of what the implications for that, mostly couples settling into retirement, they can and are more likely to drive for lifestyle and single-family detached. If they have the money, they will stay locally. But detached is more of a preference for this group. Now, this will vary in different parts of the country. Certainly, parts of the East Coast, townhome living is very accepted, and that is almost like a detached home. But they definitely want more traditional housing choices. So I'm going to go through just a couple of examples on this one. So this is a great solution. It's detached. It's affordable. It's a small lot kind of product, but it looks good, clean, traditional. Great outdoor living with outdoor private space is important to this group. So when we dive into the innovators, we have 40 million born in the 1950s, age 57 to 66. They are your #1 opportunity. They're third in population, #2 in households. They're your top new home shopper, and they have the highest net worth. So looking at the homes that they actually were raised in, much more unconventional, mismatched color, unique color schemes. Different was good. When we look at their sort of the things that influenced them, rock and roll was huge. Fantasy takes center stage. If you look at just the kinds of TV shows that they watched, just super different and outside the typical fathers knows best kind of stuff. Technology obviously impacted their world greatly. They were the inventors of many of this, including plastic cards, the first calculator. I remember those floppy disks. I had boxes and boxes of them, and thanks to them, they changed the world with technology. So for this group, innovation or just thinking different was big. Formative years, again, they too were impacted by the Vietnam War that I think ended in 1974. The pills invented that completely changes family and sexual freedom and all kinds of things like that. Abortion too creates family by choice. They experienced the first man on the moon. Again, they were the fighters for equality. Drug use, as a result of a multitude of things, spiked in the 1970s and certainly rocked their world as well. and then, of course, rock and roll, and the whole freedom of expression shift for America. Family, we had many more career women, fewer children. We had the split or Brady Bunch families where you have the combined families, and family by choice. So, and as a result of that, they adore their children and spoil their children. From a technology standpoint, we talked about space travel, but huge, huge entrepreneurial growth in technology takes off. Technology for these folks, too, do relate to more news and email and phone preferred for this group. Employment, 70% are still working. Highest net worth, stuff, not necessarily saving, so it doesn't translate to necessarily dollars in the bank. They have fewer pension plans, and they're definitely relying more on 401k. And retiring equals old. And I've heard in many focus groups where they'll say, my dad died once he retired, so I don't want to retire. That comes up a lot. It's really interesting. But you can see the differences amongst the achievers and the innovators. Very non-traditional, very anti sort of corporate. They really want sort of more of the think different. And last but not least, they have substantial equity. They want lifestyle and location, and they want location because they're working longer and they want to work longer, and they think they're about 20 years younger than they really are. So when it comes to housing and product solutions, they're really looking for something different and unique, and they don't necessarily want to retire like their parents. They want to retire in a cool, hip location, and oftentimes we'll see, and Steve, I'm sure you've seen this too, I'll see innovators very much buy like their kids buy. I mean, a little bit more vibrant in color, a little bit more modern, things like that. So I'm going to give you some very outside the box. This won't apply everywhere, but think differently is really the concept here. So to get to a location, this is a fantastic location. It's a 3-story product. It's different, and that's part of why in this market, product like this largely attracted a move-down couple. And why? If you throw in the elevator, that can really make a difference. Warmall did a product on the East Coast that was fantastic. It was 4 stories, and they added the elevator, and that made for a great solution to make a more expensive product and a great location work. And these consumers, we know, have the money. Again, this is a product in Sacramento. It's just a great location with a lot of style, and 2-story becomes much more acceptable. This would be terrific on the East Coast, many parts of Atlanta and so forth. I mean, it's terrific. This is a product actually in Northern California, and this developer designed it for his mom because he didn't want his mom to have to move the hour to 2 hours out. And to make a long story short, great location, but she said, I want a great garage. I don't want to give up my private outdoor space, and I want it to feel like home. And so that's what he did. So here's the private outdoors, which are phenomenal. They connect great with the inside. And you'll see the garage here shortly. This is a different way to actually look at private outdoor space. So if it doesn't always have to go specifically in the backyard, and the reality is it's different, and it is private, and it will allow you to have a great location. So you will need things like an elevator, or I will tell you, with the right location, they will trade stairs off for a great location as well. And again, this can be market specific. But that same product that I showed you prior, this was the solution to, I want to keep 2 cars, or I might have a 3rd car because they have their toys. So this is a lift system that actually drops down. So you never feel like the car is being floated up into the air. It literally feels like you're just pulling into a garage that's just more functional. And this particular developer really felt that they got paid a lot more. The number I got on this one for this location, and it can vary by location, was an additional $100,000 just by offering this feature. So also, you know, just great privacy and charm. This is by the Green Company. It's a duplex in the Pine Hills, and it just is super charming. It has that detached feel and flair, but as you walk through the door, you get this really cool private outdoor space on the indoor courtyard area for this community. And 80% plus want privacy outdoors. The number one reason they want private outdoors, particularly when they're moving down or selling their house, is still want to go out and read the paper outside. They still want a dog. They still want to be able to barbecue and entertain outdoors. So this product too works great here too. It's very classic. This is a great product in a very good location. If you pull this, this is a great way to get density in some of those markets and still give an affordable price point. This indoors is absolutely spectacular. This just won an award for the 55 Plus Sage Awards, and this is a move-down product, and you can see why this sold so well. Now this is actually an attached product to a duplex. There's a single family detached and a duplex, and this was without a doubt the winner. You would never think of this as being attached because it lives so well. It's all about
But
life.
it also pulls the outdoors inside, and it makes the outdoors almost an extension of the house, which is terrific.
That's exactly right. It makes this house feel that much wider because that's the living room too, and the dining room too. So for the right locations, that's great. You know, I had a comment yesterday in a speech that I did about this kind of space. They said, well, we're in, and I'm going to just say X market. I don't know if they would do that. I have found that those big, wide open spaces like this do very well in a market like Minnesota versus California, and I know that sounds contrary because they treasure the time they get outdoors. So don't assume this is anything location specific. People treasure having that outdoor time.
But
So
it's got to be private.
Exactly. Let's dive into the equalers. They're your number 2 opportunity, and they are your next, your upcoming 55 plus consumer. They're 2 in population, 1 in total household size. They're 3 for new home shoppers and 3 for net worth. They grew up, this is really where sort of that different and lots of color. If you can see what's really happening here, color starts to marry with natural pieces, natural sources, becomes more environmentally friendly. Microwaves pop in. Thank God for the microwave for some of us. And carpeting is much more standard, but you still saw punches of color throughout. Music is huge, and it continues to even get bigger because it now enters onto the TV with MTV. If you look at how television changes, you still have traditional family, but you still also have more sort of powerful, successful women, and you also start to see family redefined. So if I were to add to this, you'd see Seinfeld, you'd see Frasier, you'd see some of those other ones as well. As we look to overall life motivation for them, it's all about independence, and you'll see why. So high divorce amongst their parents, dual income families rose or rise. They were latchkey kids. Technology enters the home for these young teens and young adults for the 1960s equalers. Multi-channel TV. So TV really becomes the center for this group because of the multi-channel TV, cable, entertainment. Video games also begins for this group. I don't know, for those of you equalers out there, remember Pong? That was the beginning of video games. And then global business really emerges with the introduction of the internet. Now, it's very new for this group as young adults. I can remember introducing the internet to the Irvine Company when I was there, and it was an interesting endeavor. Family is definitely redefined because you have lots of divorced, split families, and they look to their family now more as their friends or their community that they've built because they are definitely more latchkey kids, more career women, and fewer children. Stay-at-home dads on the rise for this group because women are benefiting from those 1940s achievers and really making their way through the workforce. We're starting to see more ethnic diversity, as Steve was mentioning. And because they were latchkey kids, they are helicopter parents. So technology is allowed to track their kids down everywhere they go. And they had the benefit of the personal computer. If you remember pagers, the Walkman came in the 1970s. The mobile phone, I remember when they were as big as a brick. But TV's their center, and it still is their center. They will build rooms dedicated to big TVs, and communications, more email and text. As we look to
in fact, a media room is one of the constant things that people ask for in this group of people. It's a huge thing.
Good point, Steve. And paper, they were the first to straddle paper to technology. So their bosses were in paper world, and they were introducing technology to the workforce. And now, of course, everybody has that. But that was an interesting world to enter into, and a huge opportunity for many. Women's incomes rose, as we talked about, but less pension plans to no pension plans for this group. Social Security, maybe. 401ks or retirement, if they haven't spent it due to recent, economical conditions. They have the lowest net worth from 45 to 56, and retirement looks a little bleak for these folks. If we look at life stage and housing implications, mature couples and mature families, this group is the most likely, and I suspect part of this is financial, but they were the most likely to say that they would accommodate their next house for their parents and their 18-plus-year-old children. I think because of the fact that they had high divorce, latchkey, kids, all those things, they also want to keep the family together, but they are the most likely to accommodate both. For some, that's depressing, and for others, it can be really great. And then, of course, we're going to see much more. We're developing plans and products and all those kinds of things. This is definitely much more of a melting pot, much more ethnically diverse. So let's look at a great multi-generational plan. This actually was by Woodside Homes. Super efficient. But if you look at this plan, it really offers everything. You've got a junior suite, a flex room, a study, this great outdoor space if you want it, a great room and a fantastic kitchen. You go upstairs. You've got literally 4 bedrooms plus a loft. This could easily accommodate your 18-plus-year-old children. This space down here flexes into your own little multi-generational suite without missing a beat. You still have your office. You still have all the space upstairs. So, again, there's some really great solutions out there. I am very confident multi-generational should and will continue to rise. And this is the outdoors of that space. Again, pretty efficient, but lives well. So let's look at some of the other design trends and consumer insights for this as we're sort of wrapping up. What do these generational segments want that are out there looking for a new home? The big thing, solve anything you can for comfort. And comfort comes in a lot of different ways. Health is huge. And so that is connecting them to walking trails, connecting them. Fitness is the new rec center today. More people would like to have a room for fitness, and that's both social and keeps you on track than having that rec amenity if you're trying to waffle between which one you should include. Another really big trend, clean air, particularly as we have more ethnic diversity. If you look at China and how tough the air pollution is there, the numbers are staggering depending on the different parts of the different markets. How many will pay another $1,200 for air quality inside their homes? It's becoming a bigger and bigger deal as pollution rises. Obviously, financial security is a really big deal. So I would strongly encourage everybody to focus on function and smaller size as opposed to, again, giving them that next bigger house. It is surprising depending on the market, and Steve, I know as we did the Boomer report, this is something you pointed out, not everybody wants a smaller house, particularly if I'm moving a distance away. I might want the same house, or I might finally get the house I always wanted. So be careful of that by market because that really does change. But financial security is huge, and that can come in the form of a lot of different home technology, things like that, that can give them that security. Home technology, in my opinion, is a lot more than just, obviously, what we all think of as home automation. Home technology is anything that does exactly what we just talked about, saves them time, makes them feel more secure. It's financial savings. It's control, frankly. And so anything that makes their lives more convenient. Features like this, if they have a second home, which is becoming a big trend as well. I want to have a home where my kids are and another home where I've always wanted to retire. You'll really start to see these kinds of tools on demand. Pets. 50% actually have pets. It's interesting to me when we look at the innovators versus achievers, that innovators are 25% more likely to have pets than achievers. So that's something to think about. And of those pet owners, 53% with pets treat them like royalty. So that's really a pretty big deal. Function is huge. When we look at the kinds of things that consumers want, This is actually Shade Trilogy, and I think this is such a great use of space. This is actually a traffic space going up to the staircase where they just did the pop top up above. But it's the laundry room, it's the office where they can do bills, it's where the dog stays, it's storage space, it's laundry, and they even have the little dog shower there, or frankly, you can use that for clothes and things like that. This is just such a great use of space. Other things to think about, and I hear this a lot, is what style are they, and how does that change? I will tell you, when we look at the East Coast versus the West Coast, or Texas versus Atlanta, this does definitely vary. I just did a study for Northern California as an example, and the numbers for modern are actually above 50%. But in this particular case, nationally, 50% are more traditional than modern, and it's 31% that are modern. And basically in this question we said, look, between a scale of 1 to 5, are you more traditional or are you more modern? And there is an in-between. So when we look at the bottom, 19% said they were in between. But consider what your competition is and include the resale market in that. Who are you competing with, and what are the choices? And at a minimum, give them choice and maybe a package that allows them, if they want something different, because we know the innovators particularly want something different, this is a great way to do that. But as we're wrapping up, time is huge. We all just want more time, right? It's just huge. So as we wrap up, I'm going to do basically sort of just some top trends to think about. We'll go with number 1, and that is, the top generational segment shopping for homes, they are innovators. So remember, they're working longer and they want location first. Don't be afraid to go vertical. Just remember to solve for function, size, and those stairs, because they do want to make their last purchase a great investment.
And some of these guys are really looking for cool communities in the suburbs. So some of the cool little communities that are occurring in Chicago and in Detroit and Indianapolis, all over the country, if you can get them in those cool communities where they can literally walk to retail and have some fun, walk to restaurants, awesome opportunity for these guys.
Big shifts ahead, we coined the term suburban, and really what they want is a suburban, really sort of, lifestyle, but an urban retail center or an urban town center to be able to walk to and enjoy, and super popular amongst this group. But yes, I mean, that perfectly describes those little town centers off the, the different routes coming into Chicago. There's just some really, really neat towns there that are just really fun and good-looking towns. They want more function first, and again, they want function because they want affordable and they want to be able to live where they want to live. And so more of our macro trends are definitely pointing to small, but that's not always the case in all markets. So you've got to get functional space indoors and out. More of these consumers are likely to take a 15-foot backyard or less. Just set it up well for entertainment and how it relates to the indoors. The next one is let home technology give you a lot of the things we just talked about. It can give you more size. It can give you more comfort. It can add more health. And there's all kinds of pieces in the expanded version of Consumer Insights that we have. You can get all kinds of great ideas to accomplish this. And certainly, financial security is huge, so savings is also. But you have to show them how to do it in your models. And a lot of this doesn't necessarily cost a whole lot more or more at all. You just have to be creative with that space. And there's all kinds of cool ideas and design lens for that. The next one is multi-generational housing. I am certain this is going to rise if you deliver it. If not, they're going to convert their resale homes to accommodate it. I'm seeing a lot of that happening as well. So I think remodeling is going to be big to accommodate either resizing their house for their new lifestyle or things like this. So with family being redefined, the rise of ethnicity and diversity there, and certainly just the mere goal of wanting affordable housing and not even potentially leaving where I'm at, combining those households together are going to add to more attainability. Accommodate their pets, of course, for 50+% of your consumers. and because they are treating them like royalty, thinking through, I'm not asking you to dedicate rooms to them per se, but just certainly how you set up, and again, we've got some cool ideas. We have a whole feature for pets on Design Lens on how to accommodate that in your home. The next one is outdoor privacy is huge. These consumers, while they want smaller, they don't want to give up private outdoor space. Covered outdoor rooms are an easy way just to create privacy in an outdoor space and still hold on to entertainment. And as Steve said, it's a nice extension of the house as well. And in most cases, I've heard builders, and I ask this all the time when we talk to different builders in different parts of the country, do they get paid the same cost per square foot as inside? And I'm hearing that pretty consistently, that the answer is yes. As we look to just the evolution of style, we are seeing that casual continues to be smart, even amongst older consumers. So casual organic, as an example, I see a lot as a top preference on different markets across the country, so be thinking about that. Modern is definitely on the rise, and again, as I mentioned here, modern organic and modern casual, mostly for interior style. And last but not least, suite spaces for these people. They want that multi-den suite for the 55 plus consumer in Trilogy. We have a recent feature in our recent Design Lens edition where it's really for your friends coming to visit. You want to attract your friends or maybe your brothers and sisters from another location that you move from. In the 55 plus age restricted communities, I mean, I more commonly will have people halt me and say, nope, I didn't make this space for my kids, which is why they're in a 55 plus. That's what hotels are for. But these friend suites, as I'm going to call them, are not just for family. They're for friends to come and visit. So with that wraps it up. I do want to point out that for geography, it really does make a difference, so we can help you down at the local level. Steve's done a great job. We did a deep dive of the boomer generation on all these preferences, so we can answer community amenities all the way down to zip lines. And I know that sounds crazy for the 55 plus consumers, but again, the innovators, they want something different. So what are the cool things you should be thinking about? We tested 70 plus amenities, lots of retirement trends. Home preferences, we can tell you size, exterior style, interior style. We can get down to the doorknobs if you really want to by specific location. Crazy. And then consumer profile. Oftentimes what gets missed is attitudes and motivational stuff. That's kind of where the art and science comes in. If you can really think about what keeps them up at night, the things that really mean a lot to them, that's where you can start to create new solutions as well. So with that in mind, please take a look at Big Shifts Ahead. We'd love to help you with consumer insights for either a specific market or market study, or strategically for your business plan. See if we had OSPs or operational strategic plans that this is for. And then, of course, Design Lens. Design Lens helps to answer what is realistic in the market today. So Houzz and Pinterest are super cool, but Design Lens are the best innovative new home solutions from East Coast to West Coast that are unique and different. It doesn't answer everything, but it's kind of here's what's different and spaces and places that you can think about. And so with that, thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Lori for questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Molly and Steve. We did have one question come in. We talked about home technology and automation and how that kind of plays a role with each of these different segments of the generation. But one of the questions was, how do green features such as solar panels and sustainable products, how does that play into the preferences?
It's a really great question. When you really look at green technology as a whole, and I've been saying this for a long time, they really want green in their pockets first, right? So the key is to really show them how you're going to provide them green in their pockets. And then in addition to that, comfort, time, convenience, all those other things. So the big thing that shifted this year for the very first time is those that wanted solar, as an example. For the very first time, it's over 50%, and so they'd spend another $15,000 on solar. So green is very popular, or it's becoming more popular, not just because they want it. It's really because they're beginning to understand it. So the more you can translate that to lifestyle and the things that make a difference to both their pocketbook and how they live, I think it becomes very popular. But we're definitely seeing those trends rise. I will tell you, though, that is very locational specific. So Phoenix, for example, is going to have a much higher preference, and Northern California, interestingly enough, is going to have a much higher preference for something like solar than maybe, you know, I'm kind of pulling out of the air like Atlanta or even Southern California. It just really depends. California has some interesting incentives too to do more solar and things like that too. So it does tend to be more popular in those markets. But it's a
But if you think of it from a
location specific.
But if you think of it from a broader basis, if you take a package of things that allows the homeowner to manage and control the cost of operating their home, that's one of the things that comes up in the 55-plus focus groups all the time. It's like, I want to manage my costs, I want to control my costs. So solar is certainly a part of it, as is, you know, really intense insulation and those kinds of things, but also the tools that you have available, the technologies that you have available to help them control the operating costs of the home is huge. And that you can market as a whole package of stuff.
And for whatever reason, lighting is really important too. In the full Consumer Insights report,
Yeah.
you get a pretty detailed version of what you want in solar, and it breaks it out by the 2 generational segments. And you can do that, again, market specific. You could also do that by region. So we can really break this up quite a few ways without, and we could make this webinar like a 2-day session if we wanted to. There's so much we could cover in this time frame, but there's so much detail in the national report we did, and we can even customize a report for them as well.
Wonderful. One of the questions also that we just received was, are you noticing any trends for how storage is put together in a house, or maybe even closet trends?
Oh, I have a whole, I think we did a webinar on storage.
Exactly.
But we didn't do a
webinar on it, huh?
We have a whole special feature in Design Lens on storage, and I am constantly, I mean, I'm one of those geeks that watches YouTube on a Saturday night just to look at new solutions like that, but there are so many great storage solutions that we're finally seeing pop into the new home world. So, so I could point to lots of different solutions there, but from closets to pantries to one of the big ones, just as an example, we don't just ask you want it, we ask what you pay for it. So on pantry, for example, we'll say, look, if you want the expanded pantry, will you pay another $4,500 for it? And it's, the numbers change by market, but it's well over 50% that said yes. So laundry is in the top 3 for favorite rooms in the house amongst like 25 different room types because of what it does for you. And it's the large laundry with kind of a home management thing, and we show pictures and stuff. But yes, there's some really neat solutions. We not only have the stats on that, but we also have some great solutions on that. But again, I'd refer back to, yes, it's huge, but get the information for the markets that you're working on, and we'd happily help with that.
Wonderful. I think we have time for one more question here. One question that we got was, what about the exterior materials and or the architectural styles? We realize that some of this may be regional, but this particular question is saying, it seems that less and less, that's less important as they're looking for maybe some of the items that you talked about earlier, maybe location and some of the space functionality.
Super question, and of course the last question has to be, it's a longer answer than normal, but I'll try to simplify it. The more money you have, the more you can afford to spend the money on the outside and the inside. Interior home design comes first, because if it comes between a bedroom for my child or having a better exterior, you can imagine which one's going to win. So interior design is absolutely the most crucial. It always ends up in the top 3 most important things amongst all life stages across America. But when it comes to exterior, you asked the question perfectly right. It's very regional specific, and even the kinds of material are very specific. But the one thing that is still universal is, based on the affluence of your customer, it does shift as to how important that is. One of the biggest trends I'm seeing with exteriors from East to West Coast is just the use of color, and the whole modern farmhouse has just really exploded from a stylistic standpoint. Craftsman tends to be the most popular exterior, and I do hear from different markets, but will they pay for it? It just depends on how you do it and how you apply it. So again, there's some really neat solutions on, not to keep, I don't mean to keep plugging Design Lens, but it really is a great solution for this. But there's some really neat exterior examples of that don't necessarily have to cost you more. David Weekley has one in Fishhawk Ranch, I think is the location. Oh no, it's not Fishhawk Ranch. It's Laureate Park in Orlando. But there's some really neat solutions across the country that are popping up in the new home world. But don't always define the exterior articulation with just material. It can be color, and that will make a fantastic difference.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I think we're at the end of our presentation here. I just want to thank Mollie, Carmichael, and Steve Birch with John Burns Real Estate Consulting, and also Roger Langford at Professional Warranty Service Corporation for their valuable information, partnership, and time today for today's webinar. This webinar will be available on our website at www.homesphere.com over the next couple of days, so please take a moment and make sure that you're liking us on Facebook and reaching out there, as it will be available. If you have any other questions, please refer to your registration email. You can always reach out to me, Lori Paddock with Homesphere. I am the National Accounts Coordinator, and my email is lpaddock, P-A-T-I-K, @homesphere.com. Thank you to everyone for joining today. We definitely appreciate your time, and we hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Lori. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Laurie.